July 2012, in a report, Disability and Universal Credit, the Noble Lady Baroness Grey Thompson wrote, "No group would be more affected than disabled people," and she was right. It is estimated that 500,000 disabled people will be financially worse off through the removal of disability premiums, as well as cuts in child disability payments affecting 100,000 children. The government says support will be provided through provisional personal independence payments. Social care from local councils and transitional protection will be available when disabled people are moved from ESA to universal credit. But cash-strapped local authorities have no obligation to provide this support. Can the Minister confirm that this is the case? The removal of the severe disability premium and the £30 cuts to the limited capability for work component, as well as cuts in working allowances, will hit both disabled people in and out of work. My Lords, there have been a number of problems about difficulties accessing the system. I raised this in a series of questions in November 2012. I wanted to know what assistance will be available to people receiving universal credit if their payments are wrong as a result of their employer failing to notify HMRC of their pay and tax details. I was told if earnings are not reported, claimants will be requested to declare their earnings through the Universal Credit interface. I asked, how does the Universal Credit interface operate? I was told the Universal Credit interface will operate, allowing claimants to provide details via a self-reporting tool. I then asked what was a self-reporting tool, and I was told it's the telephone. My Lords, if it took me 3 questions to get that answer, what hope does anybody else seeking to access information of how to get into this system? How else will claimants be able to get information? My Lords, the online application process must be made more accessible, including the provision of easy-to-understand information. Does the Minister agree with that? Disabled people should be given the opportunity to make claims in person to access the appropriate support. Does the Minister agree with that? The Government has sought to reassure people with promises of work coaches who will be responsible for guiding the claims of disabled people, advising them on returns to work. Now, we're told they will work up the claimant commitment, but if people fail to comply, they face sanctions. And so far, the Disability Benefits Consortium see no evidence of universal credit processes, systems and work coaches will be able to appropriately assess and support disabled people and those with complex health situations. Will the Minister agree to look at this urgently? The fundamental purpose of universal credit is to assist people into work. So said the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Mr. David Gauke. But if you have a disability, you will be among the millions of people without work and with little prospect of work. Does the government, despite the government pledging to get 1 million more people into work, disability employment gap remains frozen. 30% of people with a disability are working compared with 80% non-disabled people. In 2015, the Conservatives said in an election manifesto, we will aim to halve the disability employment gap. Was this meant to be a parliament? Can the Minister enlighten us on that pledge? Because the government now appears to be talking about a 10-year strategy. Is that now the policy? We need clarity, my Lords, because at the current rate of providing opportunities for disabled people to get into work, they will take half a century, in fact, to cut the numbers in half. If I may now turn briefly to issues with people with autism. The disability employment gap is wide, but the autism employment gap is even wider. The National Autistic Society, of which I'm a Vice President, believes that only 16% of people on the autism spectrum are in full-time work. If you add the numbers of autistic people in part-time work, you get an overall autism employment rate of 32%, and this is despite the fact that 75% of people with autism want to work. The National Autistic Society is concerned that work coaches will not have the knowledge or understanding of autism and be unable to recognise the potential impact they may have on a person's ability to work. The barriers an autistic person faces in finding and keeping the jobs offered are often different for those with other disabilities, and the work coaches will need to have a thorough knowledge and understanding of how their advice can impact upon people with autism. To tackle the autism employment gap, the National Autistic Society want all work coaches to be fully trained, and they want the government to produce an autism-specific employment pathway with an end-to-end specialist support. I hope the Minister will be prepared to look at this. My Lords, universal credit is a good idea. It was meant to help people into work. It is, in fact, helping people into poverty. Yeah.